China bought a Korean car company, said it would invest $1 billion. Instead, it stripped the technology, cut the workers, and left. What happened to the workers who fought back is one of the darkest chapters in modern Korean corporate history, and almost nobody outside Korea knows it happened. This is the story of SsangYong Motors, a Korean car company that spent 50 years building something real, SUVs, technology, thousands of jobs, only to be stripped bare by a Chinese state-owned company that had promised to invest and grow it. The technology was taken, the workers were fired, and when those workers fought back, the Korean government sent 4,000 riot police to crush them. By the time it was over, 30 people connected to this company were dead. And a Netflix show that became the most watched series in streaming history was inspired by what happened inside that factory. SsangYong Motors was founded in 1954, started as a small workshop that built Jeeps for the US Army. By the 1980s, it had been absorbed by the SsangYong Business Group, one of Korea's chaebols, and began producing its own SUVs. In 1991, it struck a technology partnership with Daimler-Benz, Mercedes-Benz technology, engine designs, transmission systems, all flowing into a Korean car company that was building something genuine. The Musso, the Rexton, the Corando, Korean cars with German engineering, respected in dozens of markets worldwide. By 2004, SsangYong had developed something new. In partnership with German company FEV, it had created a hybrid control unit, the key component for gasoline-electric hybrid cars, a breakthrough technology. Half of it was funded by the Korean government. That same year, a buyer arrived from China. In late 2004, Shanghai Automotive Industry Corporation, SAIC, acquired a 51% controlling stake in SsangYong. SAIC was one of China's largest state-owned car companies. It had joint ventures with Volkswagen and General Motors. It was ambitious, well-funded, and looking for technology. As a foreign investor, SAIC was granted its license on a specific condition. It would invest a minimum of $1 billion in SsangYong over 5 years. It never did. Instead, according to Korean prosecutors and multiple investigations, what followed was a systematic extraction. First, the workers. In July to August 2006, SAIC pushed to lay off 554 employees. Workers went on strike for 7 weeks. The strike cost SsangYong $380 billion in losses. Workers accepted a wage freeze to keep their jobs. Then, the technology. In July 2006, the same year as the first strike, 7 senior SsangYong engineers transferred the hybrid control unit technology to SAIC researchers. Without Korean government permission, without financial compensation, Korean prosecutors later indicted all 7 engineers. The investigation into the leak had been triggered by a tip from Korea's National Intelligence Service. The Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office later stated, SAIC had pressured the engineers, using its status as majority shareholder, to hand over technology they had developed with government funding. The technology left Korea. SAIC denied everything. Before we go further, there's something you need to know. In 2021, a Netflix series called Squid Game became the most watched show in the history of streaming. 111 million households in its first 28 days. It has since been seen by hundreds of millions of people worldwide. The lead character, Seong Gi-hun, is a laid-off auto worker, desperate, broke, divorced. A man whose life collapsed after losing his factory job. That character is based on the workers of SsangYong Motors. The creator of Squid Game, Dong-hyuk, cited the 2009 SsangYong strike as one of his direct inspirations. The workers' desperate financial circumstances, their struggle, their loss. Hundreds of millions of people watched Squid Game. Almost none of them knew the real story it was telling. With the technology gone and investment never arriving, SsangYong began to bleed. In 2007, losses began. In 2008, the global financial crisis hit. In January 2009, SsangYong filed for receivership with the Seoul District Court. Then came the announcement that would detonate everything. Management announced it was cutting 2,646 jobs, 43% of the entire workforce, 1/3 of every person who worked there. But here is what Korean prosecutors and a subsequent appeals court would later find. The debt ratio used to justify those mass layoffs was fraudulent. Accounting firm Deloitte had written down SsangYong's tangible asset value from $1.7 billion to $867 million. This inflated the company's debt-to-asset ratio from 150% to 561%. In other words, the financial emergency that justified firing 2,646 people was built on falsified numbers. SAIC denied involvement. Then it withdrew from Korea entirely, departing before Korean prosecutors could pursue it. On May 22, 2009, the workers of SsangYong Motors occupied their factory. Around 1,000 of them. They barricaded themselves inside the Pyeongtaek plant. They were not going to leave without a negotiated settlement. The Korean government responded by surrounding the factory with 4,000 riot police and private security forces. Then it cut off the building. No water, no food, no electricity, no medicine. For 77 days, police attacked the workers with electroshock weapons. Helicopters flew overhead and dropped corrosive chemical agents on the workers inside, while also blocking access to water that could wash off the chemical burns. Workers inside built defensive fortifications. They used slingshots and steel pipes. They threw Molotov cocktails. One elderly worker died of a cerebral hemorrhage in the first 12 days. On August 6th, 2009, after 77 days, the workers surrendered. The agreement they signed was not what they had fought for. 90 workers were arrested by police. 165 who had participated until the end were fired. Another 462 were placed on unpaid leave. 353 were forced into so-called voluntary retirement. The company announced it had suffered 300 billion won in damages from the strike. It sued the workers. What happened after the occupation ended never made international headlines, but it should have. The workers who had been fired were blacklisted. Most could not find jobs in the Korean auto industry. SsangYong on your employment record was a mark against you. Their wages had been seized. Their bank accounts had been frozen. Their homes, in some cases, were taken by court order to pay the company's strike damage claims. A hospital survey of 193 former SsangYong workers found that 52% were suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. 80% showed signs of severe depression. Almost all of them reported that their marriages had deteriorated, and the deaths began. Between 2009 and 2011 alone, 14 former SsangYong workers and immediate family members died. Suicides, heart attacks, stress-related conditions directly linked to what had happened to them. By 2012, that number had risen to 23. By the time the full toll was counted, at least 30 people connected to the SsangYong layoffs had taken their own lives. One worker's final note read, "My salary was reduced dramatically, and it is painful to feed my kids ramen because I can't afford to buy rice. I am leaving you debts only. I am so sorry." 30 people. Because a Chinese company came, extracted what it needed, and left. And the accounting that justified it was fabricated. But here is the part of this story that most people don't know. SsangYong Motors survived, and what it became is extraordinary. After SAIC abandoned SsangYong, the Korean government took over management and searched for a new buyer. In 2011, India's Mahindra and Mahindra acquired SsangYong for $463 million. Under Mahindra, the company slowly stabilized. In 2015, it launched the Tivoli, a compact SUV that became its first hit in nearly a decade. Within a year of Tivoli's launch, SsangYong reported its first net profit in 9 years. But Mahindra eventually ran into trouble too. In December 2020, SsangYong filed for receivership again as Mahindra cut its funding. In 2022, Korean company KG Group acquired SsangYong for a final time. In 2023, it was rebranded as KG Mobility. The company that was stripped, occupied, and left for dead is still making cars. And the workers? In 2018, 9 years after the occupation, a court-mediated agreement finally led to the reinstatement of 119 dismissed workers. Some returned in January 2019, but 30 people didn't make it to that agreement. And the engineers who handed over the hybrid control unit technology to SAIC in 2006 were indicted. But SAIC itself was never prosecuted. The Seoul Prosecutor's Office stated at the time, it had no plans to take legal action against the Chinese car maker. This is what corporate betrayal looks like when it's not in a boardroom, when it happens on a factory floor, to people with families, mortgages, children who eat ramen instead of rice. SAIC came to Korea with a promise. It took what it needed. It left, and the people who built that technology with their hands and with Korean government funding spent the next decade paying the price. The hybrid control unit that SAIC took in 2006. South Korea has never confirmed whether SAIC used it, but within a few years of the transfer, Chinese hybrid vehicle development accelerated significantly. In 2022, China became the world's largest electric vehicle market. We have a lot of business stories like this for you. Companies built with decades of sacrifice, acquired, stripped, abandoned, and the people at the bottom who paid the price that those at the top never did. Subscribe, like, and comment your own thought about this story. In the next video, we go inside the most explosive corporate story on this channel yet. A businessman who bribed Korea's president. The man got pardon, the president got impeached. Never miss this. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.
땡!